Hey, my name is Deborah Winters. Welcome to my YouTube channel, a place where you will hear conversations with ordinary people telling their extraordinary stories. Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, Their Stories. I am excited to have two special people with me today, Melody and Steve Barwick. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
So Melody has an amazing story, but she can't remember. I don't know the reason why. Maybe she was like unconscious. I don't know what the story is. So Steve is here to share Melody's story. So we're just excited to hear about the goodness of God. And we do know that there's a praise report because she's sitting here and you're alive and she's well and healthy, right?
That's right.
Okay, so I've known Steve and Melody for I don't know, 2 years,
About
a couple of years.
Yeah, I think so.
We led a small group together at church, Family Worship Center, and so we're just going to jump right in. So tell who wants to start with the story.
I guess I'll let Steve.
So what was it? How many years ago was it?
11, Saturday will be 11 years.
11 years, okay. So how did it start?
Well, we were selling our home.
In
Lakeland? In Lakeland,
Okay.
right. And South Lakeland. And we had sold our home and we were packing up, getting ready to leave. And I remember packing my china cabinet. And I remember bits and pieces of that day. I also remember two men in the trucks, the ones that did most of the big furniture.
Right.
And I remember going to Steve's mother's house in Fort Meade because we were building another home. We were building a new home and we were going to stay at his mom's house in Fort Meade. So I remember driving to Fort Meade and I remember asking the guys, do you guys want some lunch? And they said no. And I said, well, there's a hamburger place here in town that you got to try their hamburgers. They're so good. So I ran and got them. I remember all this. I remember going and getting them hamburger and, coming back and we were eating and stuff. And after that, everything's real fuzzy after that. And then a lot of things I don't even remember.
So that's kind of the last thing you really remember.
Right. That's the last thing I really remember. And Steve said that, I don't know, what day was that we moved? Do you remember?
July 14th.
July 14th, and
2012.
I'm not sure what day that was of the week. Are you?
Yes, it was on a Saturday.
It was on, so then Sunday, I'll let Steve pick up. Sunday, we went to church.
Do you remember that? Do you remember going to church?
I barely remember that.
Okay.
But Steve said that I went to the altar and they were praying for me and I was screaming. He said he said he thought I was getting blessed. But I don't know. I don't know what happened because I don't remember.
You don't remember going to the altar?
I don't even remember that. But on the way home, he said he kept asking me, what do you want for lunch? And I wouldn't answer him. I don't know. So he said he brought me home.
You did answer him, you just didn't know what you wanted.
Right, I guess. Okay. Is that right?
No, you just kind of wouldn't answer.
She was non-responsive?
Yeah, just kind of off in another world.
Okay.
And then you realized when we got home from church, right? Oh, yeah. You want to tell that?
He's going to tell this, Marcus. She's guessing.
Okay. After we got home, we finally did get some lunch, and after we got home, my mother was in a nursing home.
Yes.
And we were going to stay at her house until they built our new home. And I was going to go visit my mom. So we were exhausted from packing. You know how moving is. We've been packing and moving, and we were going to do some more the next day. Now, Wednesday, we had a closing on the house.
Okay.
This was Sunday.
So
July
the
15th.
coming Wednesday, you had a closing.
We had a closing.
Right.
And so I told her, I said, why don't you lay down and take a nap? And I'm going to go to Zephyr Hills where my mother was in a nursing home. And I'll be back in a couple hours. I'm going to go visit her and come back.
So were you concerned at all about how she was?
No, not really. I just thought she was exhausted and tired
that makes
because we
sense.
had moved the day before and worked 10, 12 hours moving. And so I went and saw my mother. And by the time I got back, I knew something was wrong. I mean,
I was acting crazy, I guess.
she was very erratic behavior.
Was she up and walking around?
Oh yeah.
So are you going to tell
Buzzing
us?
around like a bee and just talking out of her head and
Okay.
kind of crazy. And I said, baby, what's wrong? And it just, the erratic behavior continued. And I said, you need to, let's get some clothes on and let me take you to the emergency room.
Okay.
I said, something's wrong.
And he said,
Was she combative?
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
I never could get her to get her clothes on.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, I tried everything. I said, Melody, something's wrong, baby. I said, you need to get your clothes on. Let me take you to the emergency room. So I finally, her sister lived about 5 miles away, so I called her sister. And I explained it to her, and I said, Bonnie, you need to come and help me get Melody dressed, and we need to take her to the emergency room. I said, she's had a nervous breakdown or something.
Wow.
And this was the beginning. This was July
Just the
15th.
beginning.
Okay.
So her sister came and got her clothes on, told her we was going on vacation together.
Yeah. And I got in the car. I remember that. I do
And,
remember that.
I said,
That weird.
she got in the car and I followed them up to Bartow.
Oh, so you were in a separate car. Okay.
Yes. So I followed her to Bartow. And when we got out of the car to walk up to the emergency room, she realized what was happening and she ran.
You ran.
Isn't that weird?
So I had to catch her, and Bonnie went inside and got some nurses and doctors, and it took 3 nurses and 2 doctors
To restrain her.
to restrain her and get a shot jabbed in her leg to sedate
Then
her.
I'd calm down. Now see, I
Now,
don't
this-
remember any
this-
of that.
This happened overnight. She cried most of the day because it was emotional. I mean, that was our dream home. We had lived there
Okay.
12 years, had a swimming pool, nice home, and big yard, and she,
We
you know,
entertained a lot.
she hated to leave it behind, and but our dream was to get out of debt as we were getting older, right before retirement, where we didn't have any debt, and so that was our goal, and
So you're in the hospital and they've sedated her, basically.
they sedated her and they began to run tests.
Or did they ask what's going on?
Oh, yeah.
Why is she
Oh, yeah,
here? And
yeah.
you were explaining the erratic behavior.
Yeah, I told them what happened, and they were unsure, so they started running some blood tests and different tests, and then after a while, I mean, she continued to be combative, and
Even being sedated, she was still combative.
well, a little bit after that, but after it wore off, I mean, they had to really watch her.
Okay.
And the next morning, I went back up there, and they began to do psychological evaluations, and they ran some MRIs and CAT scans and stuff like that, and her behavior got worse and worse.
Wow.
And they kept her for 2 days, and finally they thought it was a psychological problem, so they Baker acted her. And that's where you're familiar with the Baker Act?
I am.
Okay. They Baker acted
For
her.
those that
and I
are
had
not
to-
familiar, you want to explain to them.
A Baker Act is if someone's feels like they're going to harm someone or themselves,
Right.
they can put them under psychiatric evaluation for 48 to 72 hours
Against their will.
against their will.
Right.
So I had to, being they Baker acted her, I had to ride in the back of a police car. They wouldn't let her ride in the ambulance. When they Baker act somebody, they put them in a police car. A deputy sheriff came, and I had to get in the back with her. And
With her.
They carried us to Winter Haven Hospital to the psychiatric ward.
Now, was she restrained at this time? Was
Yes.
she still combative?
Well, I got her to calm down pretty
Okay,
much.
okay.
And but yeah, they put handcuffs on her because
Oh, wow.
they just have to.
That was
and,
hard.
And they carried her to the Winter Haven Hospital psychiatric ward and admitted her. Well, they made me leave till the next day. I could visit her the next day, they said, but tonight we need to figure out, kind of what's going on. And they did. They started evaluations, and they thought she had a nervous breakdown or something, and they started her on psychotic drugs.
Wow.
Psych drugs.
Right.
And well, the 72 hours came around, and she was no better. And they put in a court order. I had to go to court. They brought the court right there to the hospital, and they continued the Baker Act for 30 days.
Wow.
During that 30 days.
You don't remember any of this. She really is a sane, wonderful person. So, I mean, who is this person?
Now, during this time, remember, we got a closing on Wednesday.
Oh, that's right.
This is Monday, before, right after they moved her over to
Winter Haven.
And they never told the people that were buying the house. They thought they were closing Wednesday. Well, I didn't have a power of attorney in place.
Oh, wow. Changes
So
everything.
So the psychiatrist told me, he said, you need to go to a lawyer. I explained the whole situation to him. He said, you need to go to a lawyer, have a power of attorney drawn up, and have a place for her to sign. And he said, if she comes coherent again, we can get her to sign the paper. He said, every time you come, I want you to bring that paper.
Okay.
Because he understood what was going on.
Yeah.
Well, Wednesday came, and the closing was supposed to take place. I had to go to the closing.
By yourself.
By myself.
With no power of attorney.
With no power of attorney. And here, a couple from Ohio, he was a police officer, she was a teacher, and they were sitting out in front of my house with 2 Ryder trucks full of furniture.
Oh.
And we couldn't close. They were livid.
Yeah, I don't imagine.
They were livid.
I don't blame them.
She went crying and squalling and bawling.
The wife did of the buyer.
Yes.
Right.
So they recommended I sign a deed of occupancy and let them move in and rent the place until maybe
that makes sense.
Maybe she would come back to her senses. Well, weeks went by. Did
they move in? No.
Yeah, they moved in.
Okay.
They went ahead and moved in and just paid me rent for the first month. But at the end of the month, the loan that they had gotten would expire, and she had retired after they had submitted the loan, so there was no way that their loan would go through. And here they have moved from Ohio all the way to Florida.
It was something.
On the last day, so.
All this time you couldn't get her to sign the document? You kept taking the document to the hospital and she wouldn't sign it?
Her mind, let me say this. I feel like a lot of this was a demonic attack.
Okay.
I really do.
All right.
Her mind was, she would run around and pull fire alarms
in the hospital?
In the psychiatric ward.
That was bad.
It got so bad they had to restrain. She fell out of the head and busted her head open, and they had to put 4 or 5 stitches in her head. And they tried every psychotic drug known to man.
And it wasn't working.
And none of it was ineffective. And the psychiatrist told Denise, Melody's oldest daughter, and I, we went there, and he told us, he said, I can have a crazy person back out on the street in a couple of weeks with the right medication. And he said she has responded to none of them. And I have started over and went through the list again, trying her on all the different psychotic drugs available. And she did not respond.
Wow.
I mean, I would go visit her, and she only knew me and her daughter, basically. She would see somebody over there, and she said, there's my cousin Donnie. And it was an 80-year-old man, and Donnie was about 45, 50. And then she saw another old lady that was sitting over there, and she said, there's Barb. And I said, baby, that's not Barb, that's an 80-year-old woman.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, she thought we were on a ship because,
On a ship?
yeah, Lake Mirror.
Like on a cruise or something?
Lake Mirror, the psych ward overlooks a lake.
That's right, it
With
does.
windows.
Yes, I haven't been there, but I know what they're talking. I haven't been on that floor, but I know what you're talking about.
We had been on a number of cruises in times past, and she thought we was on a cruise ship. And she
Okay.
said, "You see that door over there?" She said, "The doctor said if you take me out of that door, you can take me home," which was bizarre.
Wow.
I mean, she would just totally, she couldn't, they asked her every day who the president was, where she's at, and, you know, what's going on, and she couldn't answer any of those.
Failed all the questions.
Failed all the questions.
Okay.
Day after day.
Didn't even know my name, did I?
No. And then they brought back, she knew me and her daughter, her oldest daughter. They continued on with the test, and
Okay, so but the timeline, so you were back to the house and the 30 days was approaching.
yes,
So where were you with, and she had not signed the
she
document?
had not signed the documents. Her mental state kept getting worse and worse, and they went back 3 times and got court orders to keep her there.
Extending the
And said she
background.
was having illusions of grandeur, and she said that, you know, that the world was coming to an end, and
She was saying all of this?
Yes.
Okay.
when they would interview her, yeah.
Jesus is
And
coming.
I mean, just all kind of bizarre things. I mean, her mind was just, I mean, she'd run around and pull a fire. They finally had to restrain her.
In the bed, to keep her in the bed. Okay, so what happened to the house?
The house, finally, I came down, and it was the last day that the loan was going to be good and that the paperwork. Now, I had a house in motion being,
Built?
well, hadn't even signed the final papers on it. I had to sell that to where I could put the money off of this one onto
okay.
this one. But we had already picked out our colors and carpet and
I remember that.
all that.
Okay.
I do.
We
remember
had all that picked
that was
out.
before I got sick, though,
Right.
right?
Yes. And then it came down to the very last day that it was all going to fall through. Now, this is miracle number 1.
Okay.
I brought a realtor and a notary public with me. And the doctor said if she can answer 3 questions and coherently, then we'll accept that as she can sign the paper.
Okay.
And
So you ask safe questions like, who's this man?
yes,
Okay.
one of the questions was, where are you at?
Oh, okay.
And what's your name? She said, Melody Barwick. Now it's amazing. She came in, like you and I are talking for about 2 minutes. They asked her what her name was, where she was at, and why she was there.
And what did she say?
And she answered all 3 questions correctly. And they said, that's good enough for us. And they put the paper down in front of her. She signed her name.
She signed it.
She signed Melody Barwick, just as pretty as you ever seen,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
which fixed that part of the problem.
You can
Because
close
I
on
was going to lose the sale of the home.
Yes.
On the next day, I was going to lose the sale of the home
The
and the purchase of
the
the new home.
Right. Whew.
And she signed the paper. 2 minutes later, she went right back out.
Wow. Wow.
See, I don't remember that at all. Any of that.
Okay, so you were able to.
So I was able to go, and we set a new closing date, and I was able to go and close and sell the house and start on the new one. But that didn't fix her problem. They finally came to the conclusion that it was not a psychological problem.
Okay.
And they said it was a medical problem causing severe psychosis. Well, they began to do more tests, and they moved her over out of the psych ward into the hospital, into Winter Haven Hospital.
Okay.
They started doing CAT scans and MRIs and blood work.
None of that had been done
Yeah,
before.
it had been done multiple times.
Okay, and we're doing it again.
Well, this time they found that she had a blood enzyme disorder called porphyria.
Okay.
And there's one drug that was made only 2 places in the world, London, England, and Pennsylvania. Wow. Pittsburgh,
Expensive
Pennsylvania.
too, right? Real expensive.
$4,000 a whack. And she had to take, it was a time sensitive, so once it was shipped, they had to fly it in from Philadelphia every day And once it was mixed, it had to be administered through an IV within 30 minutes.
Okay, so every time they flew in a shipment, it was $4,000.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to have it every day?
Mm-hmm.
For how long?
She had it every day for two more weeks.
Every day?
Every day for 2 more weeks.
And the side effects was heart trouble, right?
The side effects were terrible,
Yeah.
and
They said it
but
could
they
cause
were
heart trouble.
positive this is what it was. The blood work showed that she had this enzyme disorder that was causing the severe psychosis. Well, they put her on this drug, it was called Heman, and they administered it through the IV for 2 weeks. Well, at the end of that 2 weeks,
Was she better?
she went into convulsions from the drug.
So that was just a trial run, a clinical study
Yes,
to
a
see if it
clinical
would work.
study.
Okay.
And after they had done multiple blood works and, MRIs and CAT scans and all this, and they come to find out they had to put her in intensive care because her heart was failing and she was convulsing, and she stayed in intensive care for 3 days.
Okay.
Well,
so
when she got out of intensive care, they got her stabilized once again. They started on the Heman again.
on the same drug. Okay, so we're going to stop.
Except this time,
We're going to stop. We're going to stop.
Okay.
Good. This time, no. Well, let's just stop because then we'll finish the story on the
Okay.
next one.
oh,
Because
this is just the beginning.
Oh, it's just the beginning. Okay, well maybe. Okay. Well,
This lasted 6 months.
I'm taking this drug.
No,
My
being
illness.
in the hospital,
Yeah.
in the psychosis.
Well, you could move on to.
Okay, no, wait a second. Okay, so let's just finish that little story because
Right.
she came.
Well, she was acting bizarre and tried to kick the doctors and nurses, and they had her on. They put her on high doses of prednisone, 100 milligrams a day,
Okay.
massive doses.
And taking that other expensive drug along with the prednisone.
Yes. And they had her on Ativan, and they had to shoot her up with all kind of Ativan. They still had her on some of the psych drugs, and
Wow. Okay.
so she tried to kick the doctors and nurses, so they had to restrain her.
Again.
Again.
And I'm still in Winter Haven.
You're still in Winter Haven. Well, I got tired of it. I saw no progress, and I pitched a fit.
Okay. They're in the hospital.
They're in the hospital.
They're going to make her act you.
with doctors, with the doctors that were in charge. I mean, she had a half a dozen different doctors. And I told her I wanted her moved to today or tomorrow to Tampa General Hospital.
Okay.
And I said, if you don't move her, I'll take her myself and move her.
Okay.
And they wouldn't let her ride they wouldn't have made her go in the middle of the night in an ambulance.
They did?
Yes.
But they released her.
They
finally.
released her, and then when she got to Tampa General, they started the test all over.
Okay, so we're going to stop because this is going to be a part 2.
Yes.
Maybe a part 3. I don't know. Okay, so this is cliffhanger. You got to come back to hear the next part. This is intense. Okay. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.